For decades, Canada built its prosperity on one simple reality: its close relationship with the United States. Shared borders, deep economic integration, strong security cooperation. But now, that foundation is beginning to shift. Because what was once Canada's greatest strategic advantage is increasingly being seen as a potential vulnerability. And Canada's Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has now said it openly. Not quietly, not diplomatically, but in a way that signals a major change in how Canada plans its future. This is not just about policy adjustments. This is about a fundamental strategic shift.
With a clear mandate, a mandate to focus on what we can control to build a stronger, more independent, more resilient country, and to build Canada that works for all. Now, the first job of government is to keep Canadians safe. And to that end, we're recruiting 1,000 new RCMP officers, 1,000 new Border Services officers. Led by Nova Scotia's own Sean Fraser, we have introduced 6 distinct pieces of legislation to tighten our borders, strengthen public safety, combat hate, and have the biggest tightening of bail and agreement with China, which will unlock more than $7 billion in export markets for Canadian farmers, ranchers, lobster harvesters, and agri-food workers across this country. To test out the product, I will be in southwest Nova Scotia later today.
For generations, Canada's success was closely tied to the United States. Trade flowed freely, supply chains were deeply connected, security cooperation was strong and reliable. But today, the global landscape is changing. Decisions coming from Washington have introduced new uncertainty into the system. And when your closest ally becomes unpredictable, dependence stops being a strength and starts becoming a risk. That realization is now shaping Canada's long-term strategy. Instead of relying heavily on a single partner, Canada is beginning to rethink how it positions itself in the global economy. Mark Carney's response is not a short-term adjustment. It is a structural transformation. The goal is simple but powerful: reduce dependence on any single country. That means expanding trade relationships across multiple regions, opening new markets, and strengthening partnerships on several continents. Canada is already moving in this direction. New trade agreements are being developed, new security partnerships are being signed, and new export opportunities are opening for Canadian industries, from agriculture and seafood to energy and advanced manufacturing. The objective is ambitious. Canada wants to significantly increase exports to countries outside the United States, and that could mean hundreds of billions of dollars in new trade over the coming years.
But diversification abroad is only part of the strategy. The second pillar is investment at home. Carney's plan focuses on strengthening Canada's domestic economy. That includes building stronger supply chains within the country, developing new industries, and ensuring that more economic value stays inside Canada rather than flowing abroad. This approach touches multiple sectors: defense manufacturing, aerospace, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, critical minerals, and advanced infrastructure. The goal is clear. Canada wants to become its own engine of growth instead of relying heavily on external production and foreign industries.
This strategy goes beyond economics. It also reshapes Canada's role in the world. For decades, the global system had a clear center of gravity, and Canada's strategy revolved largely around that reality. But today, the international landscape is becoming more complex. Power is shifting, alliances are evolving, and global influence is increasingly distributed across multiple regions. In response, Canada is expanding its network of partnerships, working closely with allies across Europe, strengthening cooperation with Nordic countries, developing security relationships in emerging strategic areas such as the Arctic, and building technological partnerships in areas like space, artificial intelligence, and naval defense. This model creates a different kind of strength, a strength built on diversified relationships rather than reliance on a single center. What Mark Carney outlined was more than an economic roadmap. It was also a warning. The world is changing, and countries that fail to adapt risk falling behind. For years, Canada assumed its closest alliances would remain stable and predictable, but recent geopolitical tensions have challenged that assumption. Instead of waiting to see what happens next, Canada is preparing for a different future. A future where resilience matters more than dependence. A future where national capability becomes a strategic advantage. Now come to overall conclusion. Canada's new direction is not about confrontation. It is about preparation. By investing at home, expanding trade abroad, and strengthening new partnerships, Canada is positioning itself for a world that looks very different from the past. And in that world, the countries that adapt first are often the ones that shape what comes next. And Canada is making it clear. If you want clear explanations of global power shifts, Canadian leadership, and the strategies shaping the future, make sure to subscribe to Canada 24X.